NoFap doesn't work. And if you allow me to explain myself, whether you like NoFap, you participate in it, or you think it's trash, I think you're going to agree with me at the end of this video because I'm not just any random person that's like hating on NoFap. I mean, my old channel, which isn't like dead, by the way. I mean, I don't really post on there much anymore, especially now, but that channel used to have all like NoFap content. Arguably, that's what transitioned my channel, which was originally a fitness channel, to a self-improvement channel. I have a few pretty viral videos on there talking about NoFap. I have a day 1 to day 30 guide of No Nut November on there. So I'm not just some Yahoo that's just hating on it so that I can have an excuse to jerk off, right? Like I genuinely used to be a big proponent of NoFap and also somebody who participated in it and saw the benefits from it. All right. However, I have to, the point of self improvement, the point of getting better at things is to overcome things and become better. Right. So in this case, overcoming porn addiction and alleviating or unshackling yourself from the chains that is pornography addiction. Right. And the question should be, does NoFap help? Is NoFap the best method to make sure that you aren't addicted to porn anymore? And I don't think that's the case. So let me tell you a quick story, all right? So of how I got into it in the first place. So this was back in 2019, and I had just moved out of the US for the first time. I had my own, fitness business, online fitness business, and I moved to Thailand. And I was like highly stressed out, but I was also highly excited. I was in this new environment. And before that, the thing that started to make me think, oh, this might be a problem, that I'm probably using fapping as a cope for tough things in my life, is from my flight. I first went to Japan to visit family. And then from Japan to Thailand, I was like extremely horny on the plane. It made no sense. I was super nervous and extremely horny. It's like, what? I never had um, more of a temptation to fap in my life than in that plane. It was very weird, right? But then I started thinking about it. It made sense. Usually I would use that as a cope for the stresses of entrepreneurship, for the stresses of life in general. I would use that as a cope, even though I was already pretty damn good with women at that point. And just to illustrate that, when I got to Thailand, I had a bunch of girls that I was seeing. So it wasn't necessarily something that like I was using porn because I was filling a void of not being successful with women in my life. That definitely was the case earlier in my life, but at this point in my life, it wasn't. So, if you've watched the movie Don John, that's kind of what the movie's about. So I could highly relate to that movie, actually. But what really made me be like, okay, this is a problem. I need to do this is, after being there for a few weeks, I met this girl at this party, and her and I really hit it off. She's an American girl. I forgot where she's from, something like Idaho or something. But yeah, we ended up dancing the night away, and I just couldn't finish the job, if you know what I mean. Even though she was beautiful, I wanted to really badly. She probably felt insulted. I tried to see her again after that, but then it was all wishy-washy, and nothing really came of it. Even though I liked her, and I thought, we could have had some great times together. Um, but yeah, that's the reason, is because I was so desensitized. The only thing that could like get me off is like watching all this ridiculous stuff. So at that point, I was like, all right, this is a problem. And so I went and did NoFap for 30 days. And I had these other problems that happened after the 30 days where I had a glorious ending to it. I'll just put it this way. I ended up finishing No Nut November on or with, I should say, not on, but kind of on, with a Australian stripper slash OnlyFans girl. I don't know how that happened. It was like God or whoever, like, um, rewarding me for my hard work. But then after that, the next few girls I saw, I would have this issue of premature. You know what I'm talking about, just because I want to make sure this video can spread and not say bad things, but you know what I'm talking about. And so I had relationship problems that happened after that. There's a video on my old channel that says I lost like $500 because of NoFap, where I met this other girl, another American girl in Vietnam. She was vacationing there, and we hit it off and we danced the night away too. And then like I lasted like 10 seconds, you know, because I was so sensitive from the NoFap thing. And and then after that, she went to some island and I followed her there. And then everything was different there because, again, same thing. The experience that we had wasn't the greatest due to NoFap for a whole different reason than the first time, which made me start in the first place, right? And then yeah, it ended up being a terrible experience. But and so a mixture of that, the mix of it actually affecting my romantic life, along with using it as a cope for my business and stresses and whatnot. I started to get this weird relationship with it where it ended up being sort of like yo-yo dieting. So yo-yo dieting is sort of like where you do a diet, then you gain back a bunch of weight. You do a diet, you gain back a bunch of weight. That's the plight of most Americans. And so it's a similar thing with me with NoFap. Um, I need to rewind a bit. I forgot to mention this. The Australian stripper that time, the next day after that, I ended up fapping like 10 times that day. It was disgusting, I know. But like it was just, some people might be like, "Oh, you had weak willpower." You had look, maybe, but everybody has a limit, right? And so what I'm trying to say in this video is that quitting porn is not a bad thing. It's an admirable thing. It's great. But what's more important is making sure that you aren't addicted anymore. I forgot who said this, but it went something along the lines of like he was talking about cigarette addiction. If you want to if you want to know whether you've actually kicked your addiction or not, it's not about how long you've gone without smoking a cigarette. It's that I can give you a cigarette, you smoke it, and I offer you another one and you say no. That's when you know that you've actually kicked it because then it doesn't have that power over you anymore. And I think the whole nofap thing is very interesting because the porn industry itself is evil. It is. It exploits women. Um, all they care about is just taking your money. Uh, they will do whatever they can to just appeal to our most base instincts. You know, very unscrupulous industry. No surprise. So you kind of feel guilty, right, when you're partaking in that. Let's be honest, after you finish your business, usually afterwards you don't feel the greatest about yourself. So you feel guilty because of those external things, but you also feel guilty about the internal parts of like, oh, I'm a loser. I'm this beta dude that's whacking it to other alpha male dudes banging girls I wish I could be with, right? So you have a combination of those two things. And then maybe if you're a religious person, you have that weighing down on you as well. And in a weird way, sometimes that can make it even more alluring because it's bad, right? Oh, I shouldn't be doing this. And then it just makes it even more exciting. And then it makes the process even tougher. So that's why it's like I used to really be like, take a hard stance against the porn industry, a hard stance of like, you should definitely do NoFap. But I'm just telling you, as somebody who has struggled with it my whole life. And I finally, actually, within the past year or two, I feel like I've really started to not let it control me so much. I still partake every once in a while, I'll be honest. But it has way less power over me than when I was doing NoFap. Because another thing too with NoFap is that when you're not doing something, it's always going to be on your mind. If that makes sense. Especially if you're a young man, you have higher testosterone, higher sex drive. It's always going to be on your mind. It's sort of like if you're dieting and you're doing a really tough diet, food is going to be on your mind more than if you're not on a diet, right? So the way that I practically look at NoFap, I think a good thing to do because it will spur you to action is um, you do it to help improve your dating life because the only way you can get off is to like with the help of other women. And it helps put you out there a lot more. It helps you realize, and it forces you to structure your environment for success, because it's a very difficult thing to accomplish. Like, you need to learn to like put your phone on grayscale, um, making sure that there's not any temptations on social media and whatnot. It really helps to ensure that you clean up your act. But if you go in saying, okay, I'm going to just do no fap forever for the rest of my life, you're just setting yourself up for a yo-yo diet. That's all that's going to happen, because that sexual drive, with some people actually think is the primary drive, the libido, like Freud, it's so strong that you cannot suppress it forever. The more you suppress it, kind of like a volcano, the more that it's dormant over time, the more steam it builds up, the bigger the eruption, right? It's kind of a similar thing with NoFap. So you have to be very careful. Is the key for you to just rack up NoFap points and how many days you have, like they do on the NoFap subreddit of how many days I went without fapping? Or is the key to actually kick your porn addiction and help you not sit inside and be an introverted coomer, and instead actually go out there and live life? And if the alternative, if the latter is your goal, I really don't think NoFap is a good solution long term. It's more, you have to realize that in the day of social media, OnlyFans, you know, internet prawn, how pervasive it is, how you see advertisements just flung in your face. If you're on YouTube, you'll see some, thumbnail that'll just trigger you all of a sudden. This is the world we live in now, right? So the more that you try to completely shield yourself away from it, the more power it's going to have over you. It's sort of like the stereotypical Catholic school teenager that's just been shielded from, alcohol and partying and stuff all her life by her parents. That all of a sudden becomes this forbidden fruit for her. She goes to college and then she racks up a body count of 50 in her freshman year. It's a similar thing, except even more so, because we're highly, much more sexually motivated than women are typically, just because of our testosterone. And so you have to find a healthy balance with it. And ideally, the ideal point to get to is to get to the point where you're in a committed relationship, um, where that sexual energy you can share with your partner. You know, you don't, like, this is a lot tougher to do if you're like perpetually single. It's easier if you have like a bunch of friends with benefits and whatnot, but that's difficult to do. I mean, I used to do that, but like I teach people how to be charismatic, basically, So, and I have some things going for me, and I've been doing this type of stuff for a while, right? And even so, even for me, that's still difficult. It's not an easy task. It takes a lot of commitment, a lot of you have to be a bit uh, you could do it in a moral way, but if I'm honest with myself, there are times where I would stretch my ethics a bit to get what I want. So you have to be careful. So ideally, if I'm talking from a standpoint of making the world a better place by having guys be less addicted to porn, it would be, you should try NoFap just to see if you could do it, see the extent of what your addiction is like. But you have to make sure that um, you have a path to making sure that you don't just get hooked back right on it again. That whole yo-yoing thing. So practical things you can do. A lot of NoFap guys won't suggest this, but I think they're wrong anyway. Is like, get to the point where you can, you know, handle your business without watching anything. That's a big step forward. If you're really addicted, you'll notice that that's very difficult to do, right? Um, I'd actually say that that's better than watching it and not doing anything, because some people use that as like a step in the right direction. I don't think that's a good idea. I think it's better to be able to handle your business without actually watching it. And that's a step in the right direction. Or like, let's say, you can sort of gamify it too. Instead of gamifying how many days you haven't done it at all, gamify how many times you've done it that month. All right. So the step that I usually tell people, because usually people are really motivated at the beginning, is do NoFap as long as you can. And then after you fail, which you will eventually, don't feel super bad about it. At that point, the game changes. Try to minimize how many times you fap within that month. And then the next month, try to beat that. And then if there's a month where you fail or you don't beat your record, that's okay. Reset, try again the next month. And then over time, that should decay and subside. And ideally during that time, um, you know, you're able to handle your business without watching, or you have a girlfriend, or you have some friends with benefits and stuff. And then, that's kind of, let's be honest, that's why a lot of guys do NoFap. The thing is going to be make them more attractive to women, right? Which I think is true, by the way. Um, so yeah, that's a better route to do it. And the way, and like I said with the cigarette thing earlier, where how do you know if you've kicked your cigarette addiction? Is that you can smoke one and I give you another one, you say no. I think it's a similar thing with pornography, where if you get to the point where every once in a while you actually watch it and then you don't feel humiliated or bad or guilty afterwards, that's how you know that you're no longer addicted. The longer that you actually have that, the more you're actually going to be addicted. I know it sounds very like some very counterintuitive advice, but I'm telling you, this is advice from somebody who's struggled with this since I was like 14 years old. It's been like 16 years. Like I said, the past 2 years, it's been much less of a struggle because I don't feel guilty anymore, and um, I don't feel humiliated anymore. One of the reasons I don't feel humiliated is because I did have a very thriving um, dating life as kind of an F boy for a while. And then now I'm in a committed relationship and I don't feel like these are girls that I couldn't attain myself, if that makes sense within the videos, right? Because I have been with girls like that. I mean, the OnlyFans stripper girl is a good example, right? Um, so there's less of a humiliation aspect to it, and that's why it's good to improve your dating life, learn the skills, learn to become charismatic, but also use NoFap as a motivation to actually get yourself out there. Um, but then also not feeling guilty because you know that you're not hooked on it, right? It doesn't have power over you like it did before, and it doesn't give you that forbidden fruit aspect. And then I think gradually over time, this isn't a nice thing to think about, but gradually over time, men will get less addicted because your testosterone lowers as you age. I'm 30 now. I don't think I've hit that point yet, but I'm pretty sure once I hit, because I stay really healthy and whatnot, but I'm pretty sure once I hit like 35 or so, my testosterone will start to decrease slowly. And then the temptation will be even less, right? Maybe at that point I'll hop on TRT. I don't know. But all this to say, NoFap is a very admirable movement, but you can't think that that's going to be the thing that cures your porn addiction. It's the thing that can kickstart that journey. But eventually you're going to have to find a way to, I want to say compromise, but like I said, the I'm taking the standpoint of, I know I've repeated this like the third time already, but it's really important. If you take the standpoint of being able to smoke a cigarette without getting addicted to it again, that's how you know you've actually kicked it. All right. I don't want it to sound like I'm putting my stamp of approval of like, oh, therefore porn is fine. You should watch it. It's like, I'm not saying that. It's still pretty bad. I would say it's a bad industry, unscrupulous for sure, but it's going to exist and continue to exist whether you like it or not. So you have to live with it, you know? Just don't let it have power over you. Hope this video makes sense. Might have sounded counterintuitive. That's not my impression or not my intention. I take it from the standpoint of how I would coach one of my clients through this if they're going through porn addiction. So hope this video helps. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.